welcome to today's, I guess I really can't call this a fireside chat as I am in a hotel room in Minneapolis, but Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Nancy Pistorio, president of Madison Capital. Thanks for joining me, Nancy.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to follow in so many other illustrious chats that you've had with other folks in our industry. So thank you.
No, no, thank you. And I really appreciate your support. I want to say, I think this is number 30. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's great. It's been
fantastic.
fun. And, you know, and selfishly, I get to catch up with longtime friends like you. So, it's another added plus. So for Nancy, the people that might not be familiar with you, do you mind just giving your background in equipment finance, how you got into equipment finance? I mean, your career is admirable, being in one, Madison Capital for basically your entire career. But how'd you get into equipment finance?
Sure. Well, I'm Nancy Pistorio, and I'm currently the president of Madison Capital. We are an independent equipment firm based in Baltimore, Maryland, in a suburb of Baltimore. We provide pretty much small ticket and some middle market financing to small and medium-sized businesses throughout the U.S. and in Puerto Rico. We provide both equipment and vehicle leasing. So that's a little bit about where I am now and what we do here. The way I got into this industry was, I guess, a little unusual. It's kind of retro, if you will. I answered a help wanted ad in an ink newspaper, paper with ink. So not typically how one comes about finding their career path or their jobs today, and quite by happenstance. My background was in finance. I took a lot of finance when I was in school, and I was working for a real estate company. I just moved to Baltimore and have been here maybe 18 months to 2 years, and started looking through the help wanted ads. Found an ad for a young company starting out that wanted an admin assistant. And I had no idea, like many of us who end up in this industry, that this was even an industry or what equipment finance actually meant. So I took the job, and here I am today, 35 years later, running the company that I first started with as an admin assistant.
That's fantastic. I mean, I'm on my, I think, third organization in 16 years. So being at one for 30 plus, that's if you don't mind, like, you just kind of talk on how you ascended through the ranks, Nancy, to become president.
Sure. I started out again as an admin assistant. I think I was the third hire at the firm. I was working for basically the sales manager. And as that person started to look at other opportunities, I approached the stakeholders of the company and expressed an interest in perhaps having that job and, maybe managing the company, which at the time was fairly small. We got started by primarily doing leasing for Savin copy machines, copiers, office furniture, car telephones, a lot of office fax machines back in the day. And so we were probably at that point a 5 or 7 person company. So when the sales manager, who I guess arguably I learned some of my sales skills by emulating and watching her, when she moved on to other positions and left the company, then I took over that role. And I think we called it leasing administrator or something like that. And from that point in 1997, we merged with a vehicle leasing company here in town that was off assets. It was owned by a very large car dealership, one of the top 50 Chevrolet dealerships in the nation. And they had a small commercial vehicle finance company that came up for sale. We acquired it and merged in 1997. Our predecessor company that I worked for, that I started with, was called Harbor Equipment Leasing. The vehicle company here in Baltimore was Fox Valley Vehicle Leasing. We acquired, Harbor more or less acquired, but we merged the operations together, Fox and Harbor, and we renamed the company Madison Capital in 1997. At that point, I bought into the company as a minority partner, and the former president of Fox Valley Vehicle Leasing also came on board and became a partner as well. And so that's part of how I got to where I am today and part of why I stayed here. Once I had equity, and a little bit of control over my own destiny and day to day, it became much more attractive to stay and grow the company and stay with it.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point too, because that's kind of what we all look for, right? Eventually, we want to be our own bosses and have a say and equity. And one of the other reasons I like doing these, is so younger people getting in equipment finance can kind of see different tracks and how they can eventually grow to, running their own leasing company someday.
Sure, if that's the path they choose, yeah.
It's not for everyone, but anyhow.
Yeah. It's very rewarding. Comes with a lot of stress, but very rewarding.
In regards to the pandemic, did that impact you guys at all from a business perspective, or how are you guys able to, maintain your success over the last 12 to 18 months?
Well, that's a good question. It was very impactful to us and to our clients. So we probably had the lowest point of originations that I had seen in many, many years in April of 2020. So by the time whatever was in the pipeline had worked its way through from January and February, then you had the lockdown, I believe, coming in March of 2020. So by April, business was somewhat at a standstill. And I think that's for many companies. So that was a very low origination month for us. But even more impactful than that was the fact that probably 20%, up to 20% of our clients were going to need some sort of relief, either, a short moratorium on payments, deferrals, maybe interest only. So very many people uncertain about what the future was going to hold for their companies, if they'd even survive. Right. Of them, revenue streams completely cut off. If you were a restaurant or anything that was open to the public, you were shut down. And so we spent a lot of time restructuring those loans and leases. Pretty much that became almost our daily activity. And I think that's probably was very similar for many people in the industry.
Got it. Well, that's, and you guys were an essential business, so you still went to the office every day.
Yeah. That's a little interesting fact about us that's probably different than many others, is at least in Maryland, non-bank lenders were on the list of essential businesses. And our corporate office has maybe 11 people at the time, had about 11 people in it. And so we had to make the decision, while we have the capability to work remotely, obviously we all had, internet and laptops and,
right.
Zoom capabilities. And we have been on e-signature documents with our clients for well over 15 years. So we had all the infrastructure to be able to work remotely, but you lose a little bit maybe of the timing and the camaraderie. And my staff, my team, eventually in the early days of the lockdown, when we were first deciding what to do, they came to me and they said, if you'll allow us, we would like to continue to work from here. And for 9 of the 11 of us, no one was in a high-risk medical category and no one had high-risk family members living at home with them. So it was a thoughtful decision that we made to continue to work together in the corporate office. And that's what we did. And I think we found it to be very beneficial in that as the calls were coming in from clients who needed restructures, pretty much everything that came in the morning or by even 3 o'clock in the afternoon was restructured before we left at the end of the day. So we were able to keep up with that flood of requests for relief very timely and be very, very responsive to our customers. And we could collaborate with one another just like we always had been because we were present with each other. So I think that helped us. And in the end, it proved to be fine for us.
Well, and I think right now, you and your team have a leg up over what's happening now in the industry where people are being told they need to go back. And then it's like sensory overload because they've been home for over a year.
True.
So it's,
true.
We'll see what kind of flushes out when, if there's a hybrid, if there's not a hybrid, but like I said, that's good for you because I see some of these other challenges presenting themselves.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we luckily aren't dealing with right now. And there's enough other distractions in our day-to-day business. Yeah,
Nope,
we're thankful.
That's fair.
Yeah,
So I want to pivot to talking about the trade associations, you know, Nancy, and what they mean to you. I know that I think we probably met at my first, I think at the time was an EAEL event in Teaneck. You know, like, if you don't mind, just kind of share your experiences with those trade associations.
Sure. We have participated and been involved in probably most of them. Earliest was probably when I think it's the commercial finance brokers. I forget the acronym today, but it formerly was the National Association of Equipment Leasing Brokers, the NAELB. When that was formed, I want to say in the mid 80s, we were one of the earlier funding source members of that. And so my first trade show was probably, that was in the industry, was probably exhibiting at they had a show in DC, and it was probably late 80s. And so we exhibited as a funding source at that. And that was really interesting. People coming up to the table, pitching deals to live deals to you. And would you do this? And would you look at this type of credit? So it was quite interactive and quite productive. Very, very interesting. Got a lot of exposure. And around that time, we at Madison started originating some portion of our business through third party originators or brokers, if you will. And we were members of that association for many years. In the early 90s, we became active with EAEL, which was the Eastern Association of Equipment Lessors, and stayed active with them on their board probably from 98 to 2007, the last 2 years of which I was the president of the Eastern Association of Equipment Lessors. So that was an interesting time. A lot of things happened there. I think with all of the associations, you really get a lot of advantage of networking, learning about other aspects of the industry you might not work in through your peers. And certainly there's a lot of business development opportunities. And within our industry, as you may know, a lot of us do business back and forth with each other. So it's a way of meeting people, getting to know who you're dealing with, creating opportunities, and also giving back to your industry. So.
No, excellent. And to your point there, I think the more that you put in to an association when you're a member of it, the more you get out of it too. So it's one thing that kind of rings true. And now, you know, congratulations on your recent title at the Equipment Leasing and Finance Foundation. I want to make sure I say that right, the ELFF. So if you can talk about that, if you don't mind, Nancy.
Sure. I have been involved with the Equipment Leasing and Finance Foundation since December of 2007 when I went on their board of trustees. And at the time, I have to say, I wasn't that aware of maybe the differences between the Equipment Leasing and Finance Association, ELFA, and ELFF. And ELFF was created and spun off from ELFA to do forward-thinking research for the industry. And it is a not-for-profit foundation funded entirely by philanthropy and donations largely from people active in this industry. The research that the foundation does is very important for those of us in the industry because it's hard to find data on our industry if we don't create it and pay for it and, you know, award it to folks who can do the research ourselves. There's nobody else out there really thinking about equipment finance. So that's a mission of the foundation is forward-thinking industry research for those of us in the industry to utilize and gain benefit from those insights. And the other mission really that we've adopted now is outreach. So we're very large big in academic outreach and going out into the universities and the colleges and talking to business and marketing students today about our industry and creating some type of an awareness, which really isn't there in large part. And it's not taught in universities typically, equipment finance as a subject, and it's barely touched on really in any other subject. Right. It's an afterthought in accounting, I guess. Or in finance, but sometimes it's not even that. So what we've done is we've formed an academic outreach committee, and do not need to be people in our industry. We'll go out and give guest lectures to the colleges and universities. I've done several myself. There is a presentation on the ELFF website that anyone can utilize. You do not have to be an ELFA member to get benefit of things that the foundation does or to participate on our committees. So I think a lot of people in the industry aren't aware of that. They think, well, if I'm not an ELFA member, then I don't have access to ELFF research and data, or I can't participate.
I did not know that until you just said that. I thought you had to be an ELFA member to benefit from any of that stuff.
Absolutely not. And that way we get a lot of, because if you think about it, ELFA is a great organization. For some in the industry or some participants, it can be expensive. And smaller players don't have enough bandwidth within their organization to have someone really participate or take advantage of the benefits that the dues that they pay would bring them. So if they feel like they're too small to actively take advantage of being a member of ELFA, or for whatever reasons they're not a member, they can still get very active at a different cost level in the foundation and participate and, you know, pick and choose where they want to spend their time. So if someone who's running an independent company that maybe is just a regional leasing company and has a few niches wants to go back to their alma mater and give our guest lecture and create industry awareness in their own community and in their own feeder colleges for the future workforce, they can do that. And again, it's free to all, and we support them and send out material and coach people before they give a guest lecture, you know, what to look for, what to do. It's really a great program. And there's a lot of us in the industry who have given it several times, and we constantly refresh the presentation. It's free to download from the ELFF website. And that the foundation had done when the pandemic hit was we did a COVID impact survey. So we right away went out and started surveying people, those of us active and working in this business, to see what each member company, or not even member company, each participant who would answer the survey was seeing in their own portfolio, in their own companies, and what was happening. And that way the rest of us have something to measure against. Like, okay, I'm not alone in that. I've had to restructure 20% of my portfolio as well. And so it gave people some benchmarks and some things to see. And that was something that we were very nimble, and we were able to turn really quickly and come up with that. And I think that, again, all of that data is on the website, and it's free to anyone who cares to look. You do not have to be a member, and you don't even have to be a donor. But we appreciate all donations and can do more work, obviously, with more donations. So anyone that finds that they've had a rewarding career in this industry and wants to give back, I would suggest that donating to the foundation is a great way to do it, and you'll love the resources, and they're available whether or not you donate.
And for those people, how do you get to the foundation? Is it off the ELFA website, or do they have their own website?
If you're a member of ELFA and you're already logged in, or even not, I think there is a link to the foundation, but it also has its own website, and you can just Equipment Leasing and Finance Foundation, it'll come up.
And what I'll do is I'll make sure I add that in the description of this video too, because like I said, I mean, I've been 16 years and I, for some reason, assumed I made the assumption that you had to be an ELFA member to benefit. So
yeah, that's something that I've had that feedback from a few people now. We had NEFA recently hosted one of the industry's first in-person events, I think, that's happened since the pandemic. And so that was about 2 weeks ago here in Baltimore. And it was the Baltimore NEFA Crab Feast networking event. We probably had about 50 people, similar to you today with the event that you're going to do this afternoon. You have maybe 50 or so people. It was a fabulous event. It was so nice to be back and in person. And Chad, who's the executive director of NEFA, National Equipment Finance Association, was kind enough to give me a few moments to talk about my work and the foundation and my work with it. And several people said what you said. I had no idea that you didn't have to be an ELFA member to get those benefits. And so, yeah, I think that that's part of the message we want to get out there. I will be the chair of the foundation in 2022, following the footsteps of our current chair, Scott Thacker of Ivory Consulting, who's done a phenomenal job. He's really, come up with additional research and things to secure the ongoing, the foundation ongoing and perpetual. We now have a legacy giving program. So he's put a lot of things in place and done a wonderful job. And I'm hoping I can fill those big shoes when he's the past chair and I'm the chair.
No, definitely big shoes to fill. However, I know you and you got this. And also congratulations on becoming the first ever female head of the foundation. So that's amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's a nice opportunity.
So I want to pivot over to the CLFP because I know that you've had that designation for a little while now, and just wanted to talk about what that designation means to people in this industry. I don't have one yet. I'll see Reed in a couple of hours, and I'm sure she'll be hammering me on when I'm signing up as usual. But
yeah, Reed does a good job of encouraging those of us active in the industry to get the designation. So Certified Leasing and Finance Professional, CLFP. Our industry has, I guess you could say, the benefit of being somewhat unregulated, but that's a double-edged sword because with that comes responsibility. And, maybe you have sometimes in any industry some bad apples in the group, but unlike other industries that have, like the accountants have CPA exam, let's say, or designation, or, people that work in securities have certain things that they have to pass to be brokers. Our industry doesn't really have anything like that. So many years ago, as a sort of a learning and also a certification type program, predecessor association to NEFA, which was formed by two associations, one of which was the United Association of Equipment Lessors. And it was, even prior to that, it was the Western Association of Equipment Lessors. So it was pretty much West Coast members and companies, but they were fairly forward thinking for their time and came up with a program to sit for what at that time was called Certified Leasing Professional, CLP. And that was a rigorous study. You had to be in the industry, I think, a minimum of 5 years. And it was, a long test. And so as the industries merged and things changed, that spun off to become its own foundation, if you will. So it turned into the Certified Leasing and Finance Professionals designation, CLFP. Reed Reykjavik heads it up now. She does a phenomenal job. And I believe that we have just now had our 1,000th CLFP.
Saw that.
Yeah, and what's also good about it is when you go out to the colleges and the universities and you do academic outreach, people say, well, or when you have young people come into your company, they say, well, what can I work for? What am I working towards? Is there a designation that says I know my craft? And right now, this is the best and really the only one that we have. And it's a very good designation. I became a CLP in 1998, so many years ago, but it was it was a challenging test. It tests you not only on parts of the business that you may know about if you work in business development or you work in marketing, whatever, but every aspect. So you really have to study for those parts of the industry that you might not be as active in. And so it's challenging, but I think it turns out people that are well-rounded. And I think that's important.
No, and thank you for discussing that. I mean, now I have an excuse where since I can't be the 1,000th, I can tell Reed I can be the 2,000th, and then I push it.
How about the 1,100? We'll advance it. You've certainly met the hurdle of 3 to 5 years in business.
Yeah, got enough gray hair for that designation as well. So I've been asking everyone who comes on here, little fun fact about yourself, Nancy, if you don't mind sharing.
Okay. Well, Madison does a lot of business in Puerto Rico. And how did we get comfortable there? One of the reasons is on my 21st birthday, sight unseen, never having been out of the continental United States, I moved to Puerto Rico. So that was a big jump for me at the age of 21, left all my family and friends, moved to Puerto Rico, lived out in the country where no one spoke English. And my Spanish, or very few spoke English, and my Spanish was not very good. So I lived in Spanish immersion in the beautiful island of Puerto Rico in sort of a mountainous area. It was gorgeous. The town was called Rio Grande. And I lived there and in Luquillo Beach for probably 2 years, and then came back and moved to Baltimore. And 2 years after that began my career at this firm.
I love that phrase, Spanish immersion. It's like you don't have a choice. You gotta learn.
It was Spanish immersion, yes.
That's excellent. And I've just kind of wrapping up here. I know you just spoke about Madison. At the end of the day, why are people doing business with Madison Capital and you, Nancy?
Well, I think accessibility to the decision makers and continuity of staff is a big part of it. Our customer service is pretty good. And we survive in large part on repeat clients and referrals. You know, we do marketing also. We're also willing to listen to an odd situation or finance unusual products. So we financed aerodynamics for fleets of tractor trailers, let's say, and we're not financing the trailer or the tractor, but the aerodynamics of them, which would be skirts and tails. So we've done that for years, not so much now, but that was one niche. We financed holiday decorations for malls and outdoor retail complexes for years. And many of those, you know, with mid-ticket prices, $400,000 to $600,000 to $800,000. And that was a niche in the past. And then we're always looking for new equipment niches and a lot of, I guess, technology type things or new things that come up. Somehow, luckily, they find out about us and they realize that we're willing to entertain financing non-traditional collateral. I mean, we finance titled vehicles, over-the-road equipment, and restaurant, office equipment, whatever, but we also finance some very unusual things. And we're probably more receptive to that story than some other finance firms.
No, excellent. And I'm sure that makes it a little bit more fun, I guess, when it's something non-traditional that presents itself, as opposed to, another title vehicle, come on. But then it's like, oh, I get this other big project.
Yeah, one of the ones that comes to mind most recently, we had a nice niche with ramen noodle machines. Who knew? So we've done quite a bit of ramen noodle.
Interesting.
It's a niche. It's a niche, and it's from a vendor we've probably worked with for 25 years. But they started importing these from Japan. Ramen noodle is big in the U.S. right now.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
it got me through college.
There you go. See, well, the price of these noodle machines is not the ramen you bought in college. I can tell you that.
Oh, fair enough.
I think the output might be somewhat more interesting and a little better too. But yeah, it's been a niche. Again, we find things that probably aren't large enough to satisfy someone who needs big volume, but they're underserved markets, and doing a variety of those gives us a nice volume and a nice flow. So yeah.
All right, Nancy. Well, once again, thank you for your time. It was a pleasure speaking with you this morning, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you in August for maybe another one of these equipment finance things that I'm about to head off to.
Yeah, I look forward to that. I will certainly make it. That would be great.
All right. Sounds great, Nancy. You have a great day. Take care.
Thank you. You too, Jesse. Bye-bye.